This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome to the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm Will West. This is Tyler Ivens from the Sports Animal, Paige Dauer from Full Disclosure Productions, Ryan Callahan, 247 Sports. Let's talk a little bit about baseball. Last 5 years, no team has a higher winning percentage or more wins than Tennessee baseball. 3 College World Series trips. Won the whole enchilada last year. So I'll ask you this. Can Tennessee, Paige, we'll start with you, be a repeat champion, the first one since 2011 with South Carolina?
I'm even looking at the opening weekend. Of course, they have like one of the best high school classes. They have one of the best portal classes this year. And then you put that all together this year, they're having like 10, 15, 20 some runs just in the first opening week of the season. Granted, it's the opponent that they're playing. Only a couple other SEC teams are getting double-digit runs so far this season. I really like their odds. Maybe to get back to the semifinals, I'm a little nervous about saying that they'll win it all because Texas A&M is proving to be a really strong team to start. And like the top 4 teams, I think they're all like SEC teams because you got Arkansas, I think, at 5 and LSU at 3. They look really strong to start the season. So I think it's going to be tough just to even get out of the league when you get to the final push in the College World Series. But the way that they put their talent together hitting-wise, I think this could be a really strong team. I think there's still some questions and holes they need to fill with the pitching crew, though.
Brian?
Yeah, if you ask me Tennessee versus the field, I would still take the field. Now, can Tennessee win it all? They're capable of that. I think talent-wise, they're there. I think the thing that makes it so hard in college baseball is it often takes a veteran team, a team that's been there, done that. Last year's team had a really good mix of just talent and those guys that were obviously ready to go to the Major League Draft. This team, a little bit less of that. Guys who were sitting and waiting their turn or they've transferred in. So it's a different mix of guys, and we're just time will tell. We'll ask me halfway through the SEC season, maybe I'll have a different answer. But right now, on paper, it just looks like a little bit less proven team and one that's gonna maybe lack the experience. Maybe next year would be a different situation, but this year, repeating as national champion, carrying the extra weight of being in that defending national champion, that's a lot to ask of this particular team, I think.
There's a reason why for over a decade and a half we haven't had a repeat champion. I encourage you to go look at who the champions were and then see how their following season went. It's not usually the best. LSU, Ole Miss, there's kind of that curve, who you lost, who did you have to replace. 75 runs the first 4 games. I know who their opponents were, but goodness gracious, what are you doing?
I mean, you look at what Vanderbilt did. Not very good.
I mean, again, you still have to play these games in February. Paige kind of hit on the one that when I've done a little bit of digging on Tennessee baseball, it's going to be the rotation. Who are you going to rely on in long relief when it comes to needing to nail down 5-4, 4-3 games late? I think this Tennessee baseball team will have no problem putting up runs, but if you ask me right now, what are we getting ourselves into at Lindsey Nelson Stadium? I think there's a good chance we'll see some 12-11 games more than we're going to see 4-3 games this year.
I like how you mentioned like maybe the veteran team, because I always think back to like the Jordan Beck 2022 season where it was a very young, very emotional team. I think this team maybe has more blends of it being a more mature team because the coaching staff has been there a little longer. They've seen what these high emotions can do as a detriment to your team, and I think they've maybe learned from that because I think last year had beautiful blends of all of it, and that's what made them so exciting last year. So you hope maybe they've, in a sense, like learned their lesson and they'll be a little bit more even-keeled and in control because the batters looked very disciplined these first couple of games in the batter's box. They're not just like swinging at anything. I think in 2022 they would have swung at everything.
The freshmen are incredible, and I agree to Ryan's point. When I look at this Tennessee team right now, I think, God bless, they have talent, but just remember last year, when you're in the College World Series final in Tennessee in a tense spot where a mistake's made, they're laughing about it.
Yep.
That's not a thing a team that's going to be led mostly by freshmen and newcomers is probably going to be able to handle. So my big question, Tyler, can they handle the pressure when you get to the College World Series or if you get to a tense super regional, given how young that they are?
It's probably best that you have a coach who's been there many, many times, and sometimes his emotions, his personality can rub off and kind of reflect.
Yeah, he's not a chill guy, though. He's
I
a
understand that.
guy.
That's why whenever I take what Paige just said about perhaps maybe more of a younger, let's see where it goes approach compared to the 22 villains that they had, and Tony Vitello has no problem starting barking about what's happening with strike zones. I think you just asked a $64,000 question. Emotions, getting through this SEC calendar, regional, super regionals. I call this a checkpoint here at this point in time. Check back in with me in April. In May. Let's see how well Tennessee's come along.
Is that your biggest concern? Because that's the biggest concern
It's got to be
for
with
me
young
is
kids.
your freshmen are so good, they're still freshmen.
Yeah,
right?
And you do worry about like the emotional state sometimes of this team. If you go back to 2022, if they were swinging for the fences every time. They did not want to play small ball. They all wanted like that shining moment of, a deep home run. But then you look to this year, I think there's some blends of that because you have guys like Hunter Ensley that are still on the team. I think he was really important last year with like the leadership aspect and keeping everybody calm. Yeah. Having him back, I think, is a huge win for this team.
Okay, let's talk about the arms. We've seen Tennessee in the past. There's part of me that wants to just trust this Tennessee coaching staff that they're going to figure out the rotation because I've watched them go through injury after injury in the rotation, and they just always figure it out. But they don't have the same depth of, especially experience pitching, Ryan, that they've had in years past.
Yeah, and that's one of the big concerns for me too. It's when you've got to go against whoever this year's Paul Skeens might be in the College World Series. Do you have the arms to hang in a game like that and give your offense a chance to win it in the late innings? And to that point, that's where the offense has to come in too. They've still got to be able to hold up their end of the bargain to offset any shortcomings you have there. That's asking a lot of a group of mostly young guys and people who haven't been there before. So I think that's the question about this team. Do they have the top end arms to hang in there throughout an SEC series and throughout postseason play? I just don't know that this team is there this year. Again, on sheer talent, they might be, but having been there, done that, that's a big ask of this team because they don't have quite the experience that last year's team had.
Yeah, am I wrong to think you're not winning every game 27-4, right? You're going to eventually have to win a 3-2 game, and do they have the arms to do that?
Yeah, because I think you really are kind of almost desperate to get A.J. Russell back as soon as possible. I think I saw the other week it might still be an April timeline that they get him back. You look at the transfer that started against UNC Asheville and Brandon Arvidsson. He only lasted 2 innings. I think gave up 3 runs. So he's only pitched 3 innings total. We've not seen too much from him, but he's one guy that this team was really high on coming into the season. He's someone that needs to maybe develop a little bit quicker so that you can have some depth in your bullpen.
Friday nights last year where you were throwing Stamos out there and trying to say, get me as many as you can, trying to save bullets before your Saturday, Sunday starters.
Games, things
Seriously,
like that.
Tennessee can find a way with this offense to get any type of establishment, 2, 3 into the weekend starters. Yeah, maybe we should be talking about bare minimum another trip back to Omaha.
That's Tyler Ivens from the Sports Animal, Paige Dauer, Full Disclosure Productions, Ryan Callahan, 247 Sports. I'm Will West. Thanks for watching the Sports Source Digital Network.